Part 5. Ripples across the galaxy. 2 months had passed since the ritual combat. Jiwoo sat in her small quarters at the settlement, staring at the completed report on her computer screen. It had taken weeks to write, weeks to compile all the data, all the evidence, all the conclusions. The document was comprehensive, thorough, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. She had titled it simply, A Reassessment of Human Capabilities and Threat Classification. The report detailed everything: human biology, with its redundant systems and impossible durability; human psychology, with its strange mixture of empathy and lethality; human history, full of conflicts that should have destroyed them but instead made them stronger; and most importantly, human culture, which valued cooperation and protection despite coming from a world that should have taught them only violence. Jiwoo had sent the report to the Galactic Coalition Science Directorate 3 days ago. This morning she had received a response. They wanted her to present her findings in person, to the full council. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Tae-sung entered, carrying a package. He had recovered from his injuries, though Jiwoo knew he still felt pain in his ribs when the weather changed. Humans were tough, but they were not invincible. "Mail delivery," Tae-sung said with a smile. "Well, more like a gift. From my sister on Earth." "You have a sister?" Jiwoo asked. In all their conversations, Tae-sung had never mentioned family. "Yeah, Bora. She's a wilderness guide, takes people on tours of dangerous places for fun." Tae-sung laughed at Jiwoo's expression. I know. Humans and their recreational death activities. She sent you something, actually." He handed Jiwoo a small box. Inside was a piece of polished stone with swirling patterns of blue and white. It was beautiful. "It's from a mountain near where we grew up," Tae-sung explained. "Bora thought you might like it, as a thank you for taking care of me after the fight." Jiwoo held the stone carefully. "I should be thanking you. You saved my life, twice if you count the fight with Grath." "We're friends," Tae-sung said simply. "That's what friends do. Friends." The word made Jiwoo smile. She had never had an alien friend before, especially not a human. "I'm going to the coalition capital next week," she said, "to present my report about your species." "That should be interesting," Tae-sung said. "What are you going to tell them?" "The truth," Jiwoo replied, "that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and that's exactly why the galaxy needs them." 1 week later, Jiwoo stood in the Coalition Council chamber, looking out at representatives from hundreds of species. The chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes. Some sat in chairs, others floated in special tanks. Still others connected remotely through holographic projections. She saw the coordinator from the settlement, Hana, sitting in the observers section. Tae-sung was there too, looking uncomfortable in formal clothes. He had insisted on coming, saying he wanted to hear what she had to say about his species. Standing next to Jiwoo at the presentation platform was Dong-hyun, a human diplomat who served as humanity's primary representative to the council. He was older than Tae-sung, with gray hair and kind eyes. Before the presentation began, he had introduced himself to Jiwoo and thanked her for her research. "We've been waiting for someone to really study us," Dong-hyun had said, "to understand what we are, not just what we appear to be." Now, as Jiwoo activated her presentation, she felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on her. This was important. This would change how the galaxy saw humanity. "Honored council members," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I come before you today to present findings that require us to fundamentally reassess our understanding of the human species. My research was prompted by a personal experience where a human civilian defeated 7 Chromathar raiders in single combat, and later survived ritual combat against a Chromathar champion. These events led me to investigate human capabilities more thoroughly." The presentation began with biological data. Jiwoo showed scans of human bodies, highlighting the bone density, muscle structure, organ redundancy. She explained the adrenaline response, the fast healing capabilities, the endurance that allowed humans to outlast almost any other species in physical activity. "Humans evolved on a Class 12 death world," she continued. "Earth's gravity is 0.3% higher than standard. Its atmosphere has an oxygen concentration that would be toxic to 60% of known species. Its weather patterns include storms with wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. and its predator saturation level suggests that early humans faced constant threat from multiple apex predators. She showed images of Earth's animals, creatures that weighed tons, creatures with teeth longer than Jiwoo's arm, creatures that could crush bones with a single bite. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. In response to these pressures, Jiwoo explained, humans evolved a unique combination of traits. They became endurance hunters, capable of pursuing prey for hours or even days until the target collapsed from exhaustion. They developed tool use to compensate for their lack of natural weapons. They formed complex social structures that allowed them to bring down creatures far larger than themselves. And most importantly, they developed a psychological profile that combines high empathy with the capacity for calculated violence. A council member from the Quellan species raised a tentacle. Are you suggesting that humans are a threat to the coalition? No, Jiwoo said firmly. I'm suggesting that humans are powerful allies precisely because they understand violence, but choose cooperation. They could dominate through force, but they don't. That restraint is not weakness, it's wisdom. She moved to the next section of her presentation showing human history, wars, conflicts, struggles for survival, but also art, music, literature, acts of incredible kindness alongside acts of necessary violence. Humans have a saying, Jiwoo said. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. They understand that peace requires the ability to protect it. That gentleness is only possible when backed by strength. Dong-hyun stepped forward to address the council. If I may add some context, he said, my people have always been transparent about our nature. We did not hide our history or our capabilities. But we also understand that our role in the coalition is not to intimidate or dominate. It's to protect and serve. But why? Another council member asked. If humans are as capable as this research suggests, why do you accept an equal partnership with species far weaker than yourselves? Dong-hyun smiled. Because we learned something important from our own history. Strength alone doesn't build civilizations. Cooperation does. Diversity does. Every species in this council brings something unique and valuable. Humans might be good at surviving and fighting, but we're not the best scientists or the best artists or the best philosophers. We need you as much as you need us. Jiwoo pulled up the final section of her report. I've spent 2 months studying humanity. I've reviewed their military records, their cultural practices, their individual behavior, and I've discovered something that I believe is crucial for the council to understand. She showed footage from the Vrel border conflicts, human soldiers fighting alongside coalition forces, then footage of human rescue workers saving people from natural disasters, human doctors treating alien patients, human teachers educating alien children. Humans are dangerous, Jiwoo said, but they're dangerous to those who threaten the innocent. They're protective of those weaker than themselves. They form bonds across species barriers more easily than any race I've studied. They volunteer for the most dangerous jobs because they believe someone has to do it, and they're best equipped to survive. She looked directly at the council. I was moments from becoming alien barbecue when a human stepped in. He risked his life for a stranger from a species he'd never met before. That's not an anomaly. That's who humans are, and that's why I'm recommending that we don't increase humanity's threat classification in our databases. Instead, I recommend we add a new category entirely, protector species. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members argued in favor, others against. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the council called for a vote. The resolution passed by a narrow margin. Humanity would be reclassified, their capabilities properly documented, but also their nature as protectors recognized. After the session ended, Jiwoo found Taesung waiting for her outside the chamber. So, he said, how did it go? You're officially recognized as scary but trustworthy, Jiwoo replied with a smile. Taesung laughed. I'll take that. They walked through the capital together, past buildings that represented hundreds of species and thousands of cultures. Jiwoo thought about everything that had happened, from the terror in the canyon to standing before the council, all because one human chose to help. I got a message from Bora, Taesung said. My sister. She wants to know if you'd like to visit Earth. See where humans come from. Jiwoo's eyes widened. Visit Earth? The death world? She promises to show you only the safe parts, Taesung said. Well, relatively safe. And I'll be there to make sure nothing happens to you. Part 4. The Chromathar Return. 3 days had passed since the attack in the canyon. Jiwoo spent every moment of those days researching humans, compiling data, and trying to understand the species that had saved her life. She stayed in the settlement's research center, sleeping little and eating less. Tae-sung visited her twice, bringing food and checking that she was okay. He seemed concerned about her obsessive focus, but Jiwoo could not stop. Every piece of information she discovered about humans made the picture clearer and more frightening. On the third day, the alarm started blaring. Jiwoo ran out of the research center to find the settlement in chaos. People were running in all directions, some trying to hide, others gathering their belongings. She grabbed a passing Sylvani trader by the arm. "What's happening?" she demanded. "The Chromathar," the Sylvani gasped. "They're back. A whole war pack this time. 40 warriors, maybe more. They're surrounding the settlement." Jiwoo felt ice in her stomach. 40 Chromathar. The settlement had perhaps 200 inhabitants, but most were civilians. Traders, researchers, administrators. They had minimal security, just enough to handle occasional disputes and minor crimes. Nothing that could stand against a Chromathar war pack. She ran toward the settlement's administrative building, pushing through the panicked crowd. Inside, she found Hana, the settlement's coordinator. The Sylvani woman was standing at a communication console, her face pale with worry. Several other settlement leaders were gathered around her, all talking at once. "We have to evacuate," one of them was saying. "There's no time," another argued. "Their ships are blocking the spaceport." "Then we negotiate," a third suggested. Hana held up her hand for silence. "They've already told us their demands. They want the human. They want Tae-sung." Jiwoo pushed forward. "What? Why?" Hana looked at her with tired eyes. Apparently, the humans' victory over their hunting party was a great humiliation. In Chromathar culture, such an insult must be answered with blood. They're demanding ritual combat. If Tae-sung fights their champion and loses, they'll leave peacefully. If we refuse to hand him over, they'll destroy the settlement. "That's not a choice," Jiwoo said. "That's murder." "We can't just give them Tae-sung, can't we?" another administrator asked. He was a Quellan, a species known for practical thinking. 1 life versus 200. The mathematics are clear. "The mathematics don't account for what's right," Jiwoo shot back. "But they account for what's necessary," the Quellan replied. "I'm sorry, Jiwoo, but sentiment cannot guide this decision. We must think of the majority." The argument continued, voices rising. Jiwoo felt helpless. She was a scientist, not a leader. She had no authority here. But she could not let this happen. She could not let them sacrifice the being who had saved her life. The door to the command center opened and Tae-sung walked in. Everyone fell silent. The human looked around at the gathered faces, understanding the situation immediately. "I heard the alarms," he said calmly, "and I heard the Chromathar broadcast their demands." "I'm here to volunteer." "No," Jiwoo said immediately. "You can't." Tae-sung looked at her and smiled gently. "I can and I should. This is my fault in a way. I embarrassed them and now they need to restore their honor. If my fighting their champion can save the settlement, then that's what I'll do." "You'll die," Jiwoo said. The words came out as barely more than a whisper. "Maybe," Tae-sung admitted, "but maybe not. I've survived worse odds before." Hana stepped forward. "Human Tae-sung, we cannot ask this of you." "It's not right." "You're not asking," Tae-sung said. "I'm offering. There's a difference." Before anyone could argue further, the communication console beeped. Hana activated it, and Vask's face appeared on the screen. The Chromathar leader's scar seemed even more prominent in the harsh light of the transmission. "Have you made your decision, Coordinator?" Vask asked. "Will you surrender the human, or will we take him by force?" Tae-sung stepped up to the console before Hana could answer. "I'll fight your champion, Vask, but I have conditions." Vask's eyes widened slightly in surprise. Then he laughed. "The human has courage, I'll grant him that." "What conditions?" "We fight unarmed," Tae-sung said. "No weapons, no armor. Just skill against skill. If I win, you and your war pack leave this planet and never return. You'll also spread word that this settlement and everyone in it are under human protection." Vask considered this. "And if you lose?" "Then you get what you came for," Tae-sung said simply. "My life. And your honor is restored." "What about the Valrine you protected?" Vask asked. "She was ours by right of hunt." "She was never yours," Tae-sung said, his voice hardening. "She's a person, not prey. That's non-negotiable." Vask was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. We fight at sunset in the arena outside the settlement. Unarmed combat. My champion is Grath, the finest warrior of our pack. He is killed in over 100 ritual combats. He will enjoy breaking you, human. The transmission ended. Taesung turned to find everyone staring at him. You didn't have to do that, Hana said softly. Yes, I did, Taesung replied. It's who I am. It's who humans are. We help when we can and we fight when we must. Jiwoo grabbed his arm. Taesung, listen to me. I've been studying your species for 3 days straight. I understand your capabilities now. You're stronger and more durable than most species. Your reflexes are faster. Your endurance is incredible. But the Chromathar champion, this Grath, he's won over 100 fights. He's a specialist. A killer. Taesung patted her hand gently. I know, but I still have to try. The hours until sunset passed too quickly. The settlement gathered outside the walls, forming a circle around a flat area that would serve as the arena. The Chromathar war pack stood on one side, 40 massive warriors watching with yellow eyes. The settlement inhabitants stood on the other side, much more numerous but far less imposing. As the sun touched the horizon, Grath stepped into the arena. He was massive, even by Chromathar standards. Nearly 9 feet tall, with muscles that rippled under his scales. Scars covered his body, each one a testament to battles survived. His eyes were cold and calculating. This was a creature born and bred for combat. Taesung walked into the arena from the other side. Compared to Grath, he looked small, fragile, human. Last chance to run, little human, Grath said. His voice was deeper than Vask's, rumbling like distant thunder. I will make your death quick if you ask. You fought well against the hunters. You deserve that much mercy. I'm not running, Taesung said, and I'm not dying today. Grath smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. We shall see. Vask stepped forward to officiate. This is ritual combat under Chromathar law. The fight continues until one fighter cannot stand, surrenders, or dies. No interference is permitted. Begin. Grath charged immediately, crossing the arena in 3 massive strides. His fist came down like a hammer toward Taesung's head. The human moved at the last possible second, and Grath's fist struck the ground, creating a crater in the hard-packed earth. Taesung rolled to the side and came up on his feet. He was studying Grath, Jiwoo realized, watching how the Chromathar moved, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Grath charged again, this time mixing up his attacks. High strikes followed by low ones, trying to overwhelm the human with his reach and power. Taesung dodged most of them, but one punch grazed his shoulder and Jiwoo saw him wince. Even a glancing blow from Grath carried tremendous force. You're fast, Grath admitted, but speed alone won't save you. Eventually you'll slow down. You'll make a mistake, and then I'll crush you. Taesung did not reply. He kept moving, kept dodging. He was not attacking back, Jiwoo noticed, just defending, evading, surviving. Minutes passed. Grath's attacks became more aggressive, more frustrated. He could not land a solid hit on the smaller, faster human. The crowd watched in tense silence, barely breathing. Then Taesung made his move. When Grath lunged forward with both arms extended, trying to grapple, Taesung ducked under the grab. But instead of running away, he moved closer. He grabbed Grath's extended arm with both hands, positioned his hip, and threw. It was a textbook judo throw, using Grath's own momentum and mass against him. The massive Chromathar went flying over Taesung's shoulder and crashed to the ground on his back. The impact shook the arena. The crowd gasped. No one had expected to see Grath, the champion, on the ground. Grath roared in fury and scrambled to his feet. He charged again, but this time Taesung was ready. Every time Grath attacked, Taesung redirected the force, turned the Chromathar's strength into a liability. Throws, trips, sweeps. Taesung was fighting smart, not strong, but Grath was experienced too. He adapted, became more cautious. He landed a solid punch to Taesung's ribs, and Jiwoo heard the crack even from where she stood. Taesung staggered, blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. I've broken your ribs, human, Grath said. Surrender now and end this. Taesung straightened up slowly, one hand pressed to his side. Not yet, he said through gritted teeth. The fight continued, brutal and relentless. Both fighters were injured now, bleeding and exhausted, but neither would yield. 12 minutes had passed, an eternity for such intense combat. Then Taesung changed tactics again. Instead of throwing Grath, he went for joints. Part 3, Questions and Revelations. The walk to Tae-sung's transport felt like a dream to Ji-woo. Her legs moved automatically, one foot in front of the other, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. She kept replaying the fight in her head, trying to understand what she had seen. It did not make sense. Nothing about it made sense. "You're very quiet," Tae-sung said as they walked through the ruins. "That's normal after something like this. The shock will wear off eventually. Just take your time." Ji-woo looked up at him. In the fading light, she could see his face more clearly now. He had dark hair and brown eyes, features that seemed soft compared to the harsh angles of the chromathar. He looked normal, unremarkable, certainly not like someone who had just defeated 7 trained warriors. "How?" she finally asked. The word came out barely louder than a whisper. "How what?" Tae-sung asked gently. "How did you do that? How did you fight them? How did you win?" The questions poured out of Ji-woo now, her scientific curiosity fighting through the fear. "They were bigger than you, stronger, they had better weapons. There were 7 of them. By every calculation, you should have died." Tae-sung was quiet for a moment as they walked. "I had training," he said finally. "Basic combat training. Most humans learn it, at least where I'm from. And I was a soldier before I became a freight hauler, so I had more training than most. But that can't be all," Ji-woo insisted. "I saw you move. I saw you fight. That wasn't just training. That was something else." They reached Tae-sung's transport, a medium-sized cargo vessel that looked well used but maintained. He helped Ji-woo up the ramp and into the crew compartment. It was clean and organized, with cargo containers secured in the back and a small living area toward the front. "Sit," Tae-sung said, pointing to a chair. "I'll get the medical kit. We should at least check your vitals." While he rummaged through a storage locker, Ji-woo looked around the compartment. There were personal items scattered about that gave her clues about this human. Pictures on the wall showing mountains and forests. Books in what she assumed was a human language. A worn piece of fabric with symbols on it that might have been a flag or banner. Tae-sung returned with a small medical scanner. "This is calibrated for multiple species," he said. "May I?" Ji-woo nodded. She watched as the human ran the scanner over her, his movements careful and professional. He checked the readout and nodded. "You're okay," he said. "Elevated heart rate and some stress hormones, but that's expected. You should rest when we get to the settlement." "I want to scan you," Ji-woo blurted out. Tae-sung blinked in surprise. "Me? Why?" "Because I need to understand." Ji-woo stood up, her fear being replaced by scientific determination. "I'm a researcher. What I saw tonight contradicts everything in the galactic database about your species. Please, let me scan you." Tae-sung looked uncertain, but then he shrugged. "Sure, I guess. If it helps you process what happened, go ahead." Ji-woo took the scanner with trembling hands. She had used these devices thousands of times on various species and artifacts. But as she began scanning the human in front of her, what she saw on the readout made her hands shake even more. The data was incredible, impossible, terrifying. "Your bone density," she said, her voice rising with excitement and horror. "It's 3 times what it should be for a species your size. And your muscles, they have a structure I've never seen before. Fast twitch fibers that can generate enormous force in short bursts, but also slow twitch fibers for endurance. You're built for both sprinting and marathon running." Tae-sung scratched his head. "Is that unusual? I mean, most humans are built like this. It's just how we are." Ji-woo was not listening. She was scrolling through the scan results, her eyes growing wider with each new discovery. "You have redundant organ systems, backup kidneys, an appendix that serves as a reserve immune system. Your cardiovascular system can redirect blood flow to prioritize different functions. And this, what is this chemical?" "Oh, that's probably adrenaline," Tae-sung said casually. "It kicks in when we're in danger. Increases strength, dulls pain, makes us faster. Every human has it." "This is not normal," Ji-woo said flatly. She looked up from the scanner to stare at Tae-sung. "None of this is normal. Your species should not exist. The energy requirements alone, the evolutionary pressures needed to develop these traits, they would require a hostile environment beyond what most species could survive." She ran to the transport's computer terminal. "May I access the galactic database?" "Sure," Tae-sung said, sounding confused. "Help yourself." Ji-woo's fingers flew over the keyboard. She pulled up the entry for humans, read it quickly, then searched for information about Earth. What she found made her feel cold, despite the warm air in the compartment. "Your planet," she said slowly. "Earth. It's classified as a Class 12 death world. Is it? Tae-sung asked. I didn't know there was a classification system for that. Class 12, Jiwoo repeated. That means the gravity is higher than standard. The atmosphere is technically toxic to most species due to oxygen concentration. The weather patterns include violent storms that can destroy cities, and the predator-to-prey ratio suggests that your species evolved in an environment where almost everything was trying to kill you. She turned to face him. Your oceans have creatures larger than starships. Your weather can produce winds that reach hundreds of kilometers per hour. You have geological events that can wipe out entire regions without warning. Earth is categorized as unsuitable for colonization by 80% of known species. Tae-sung shrugged. It's home. I mean, yeah, there are dangerous parts, but there are also beautiful parts. The mountains where I grew up, for example. Incredible views. You lived in mountains? Jiwoo asked. Mountains are high-altitude, low-oxygen environments with extreme temperature variations and unstable terrain. Well, yeah, Tae-sung said. But that's why we go there for vacation. It's fun. Good hiking, climbing, camping under the stars. Jiwoo sat down heavily. Her legs felt weak again, but this time from revelation rather than fear. You go to deadly environments for fun, she said. Of course you do, because to you they're not deadly. They're just normal. Tae-sung sat down across from her. Listen, I think I'm starting to understand what's bothering you. You're realizing that humans are more dangerous than you thought, right? Dangerous is not the right word, Jiwoo said. Your species is not dangerous in the way the Chromathar are dangerous. They evolved as predators and remained predators. But humans, you evolved as prey that learned to fight back. You became predators by necessity, not nature. That makes you something different, something unique. She pulled up more data, searching through historical records. I'm looking at the Vrel border conflicts. Human military units participated in that war. The records show human battalions regularly defeating enemy forces that outnumbered them 5-1. I thought those records were exaggerated. Now I understand they were probably accurate. That was a rough war, Tae-sung admitted. I was there for 2 years. Lost some good friends. Jiwoo looked at him with new eyes. You fought in a war and now you haul freight. Why? Because the war ended, Tae-sung said simply. And someone needs to deliver supplies to frontier settlements. Seemed like useful work. Do you miss it? The fighting? No, Tae-sung said immediately. His face became serious. I miss my friends who didn't come back. I miss the person I was before I saw what war does to people. But the fighting itself? Never. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment, processing this. But when you saw me in danger, you didn't hesitate. You fought again. That's different, Tae-sung said. That wasn't war. That was just helping someone who needed help. Any decent person would have done the same. Any decent human, perhaps, Jiwoo said. My species would have called for help and hoped someone arrived in time. Most species in the coalition would have done the same. But you ran toward danger instead of away from it. That's not normal behavior, Tae-sung smiled. Maybe humans aren't normal then. Jiwoo pulled up one more file, this one showing Earth's position in the galaxy. Your planet is far from the coalition core. First contact was only 30 years ago. The galaxy is still learning about your species. And humans are still learning about the galaxy. But I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? Tae-sung asked. The coalition sees humans as peaceful traders and explorers. Friendly, cooperative, eager to join the galactic community. And that's true. But what they don't see is why you're like that. They think it's because humans are naturally peaceful. They don't understand that you choose peace because you understand the cost of violence better than species who have never had to fight for survival. Jiwoo saved all the data she had gathered. I'm going to write a report. A comprehensive report about human capabilities and psychology. The coalition needs to know the truth about your species. What truth? Tae-sung asked. That humanity is the most dangerous species in the galaxy, Jiwoo said. And also the kindest. Those two facts are connected, and that's what makes humans remarkable. The twin suns of Keshar 7 were beginning to set, when Jiwoo noticed the first shadow moving between the ruins. She was crouched near an ancient stone pillar, carefully brushing sand away from what looked like writing from a civilization that died thousands of years ago. Her small fingers worked with practiced precision, and her large dark eyes focused completely on the delicate work. Jiwoo loved her job. As a Valrine scientist, she spent most of her time studying the past, trying to understand the species that once lived on worlds like this one. The Valrine were known across the galaxy for their intelligence and curiosity. They were also known for being small, fragile, and completely unable to defend themselves. Evolution had given them big brains but weak bodies. That was fine on their peaceful homeworld, but out here on the frontier it made them vulnerable. The shadow moved again. This time Jiwoo saw it clearly. Something large was circling her position. Her heart began to beat faster. She slowly reached for her communication device, trying not to make sudden movements. Before her fingers touched it, something hot and bright flashed through the air. A net made of crackling energy wrapped around her equipment and shelter, crushing both instantly. Sparks flew everywhere, and the smell of burned plastic filled the air. Jiwoo stumbled backward, her legs shaking. That was when she saw them. 7 figures emerged from behind the ruins, each one massive and terrifying. They were Chromathar, the reptilian species that controlled several systems near the frontier. They stood over 8 feet tall with scales that looked like natural armor covering their bodies. Their eyes glowed yellow in the fading light, and their mouths were filled with rows of sharp teeth. The Chromathar had a reputation. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were hunters who captured smaller species for sport. Some whispered that they also ate their prey afterward, though no one could prove it because no one ever survived to report it officially. The largest Chromathar stepped forward. His scales were darker than the others, almost black, and he had scars covering his arms and face. He looked at Jiwoo the way a predator looks at food. "Little Valrine," he said in rough galactic common, the language most species use to communicate. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "You are very far from your people, very far from safety." Jiwoo tried to speak, but no words came out. Terror had locked her throat. The Chromathar leader laughed, a horrible sound that made Jiwoo's skin crawl. "I am Vask. My brothers and I, we come to this world to hunt. Usually we hunt the animals in the deep desert, but today we found something much more interesting. We found you." The other Chromathar spread out, forming a circle around Jiwoo. They carried weapons that looked both advanced and brutal. Plasma rifles hung from their shoulders and long knives were strapped to their belts. But they had not drawn any weapons yet. They did not need to. Just their presence was enough to paralyze the small scientist with fear. "Here are the rules," Vask continued, clearly enjoying himself. "We give you 1 hour to run. 1 full hour. You run as fast as you can, as far as you can. Hide if you want. Climb if you can. Do whatever your weak little body allows. Then when the hour ends, we hunt." One of the other Chromathar made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "The small ones never last long," he said, "but they are always the most fun to chase." Vask nodded. "And when we catch you, little Valrine, we will cook you over a fire. Slowly. We have done this before on other worlds. Your species makes good meat. Very tender." Jiwoo felt her legs give out. She fell to her knees in the sand, her whole body shaking. This could not be happening. She was a scientist. She studied old rocks and ancient writing. She had never hurt anyone. Why was this happening to her? "Run," Vask said. His voice dropped to a threatening growl. "Your hour starts now." Survival instinct finally overrode Jiwoo's terror. She forced her legs to work and scrambled to her feet. Without thinking, without planning, she ran. Behind her, she heard the Chromathar laughing and making excited sounds. They were enjoying this. Jiwoo ran between the ancient pillars and broken walls, her feet slipping in the loose sand. She had no idea where she was going. The dig site was 3 kilometers from the main settlement, too far to reach before the Chromathar started hunting. Even if she could reach it, the settlement had minimal defenses. They were traders and researchers, not soldiers. She tried to think. Her mind raced almost as fast as her feet. The ruins were extensive, covering several square kilometers. Maybe she could hide in one of the underground chambers. Maybe she could find a crack in the rock too small for the Chromathar to follow. Maybe. But deep down, Jiwoo knew the truth. The Valrine were not built for this. They were not fast runners. They had no natural weapons. They could not fight. They could barely survive in conditions that other species found comfortable. Her only advantages were her intelligence and small size, and neither seemed very useful right now. 15 minutes passed. Jiwoo's lungs burned. Her legs felt like they were on fire. She had never run this hard in her entire life. Sweat poured down her face, stinging her large eyes. The air was too hot, too dry. Her species came from a world with gentle weather and plenty of water. This desert planet was already hostile to her, even without the Chromathar. She found herself in a narrow canyon between 2 rock formations. The walls were high and steep. At the far end, she could see that the canyon was blocked. Dead end. She had run into a trap. Jiwoo turned around, planning to backtrack, but it was too late. The Chromathar had followed her. She could see them at the canyon entrance, moving slowly now. They were not in a hurry anymore. They had her cornered. The little one chose poorly, Vask called out. His voice echoed off the canyon walls. This makes our job easier. The Chromathar walked forward together, weapons still holstered. They did not need weapons for a creature as weak as her. Jiwoo backed up until she hit the canyon wall. There was nowhere left to go. Then she saw what was behind the Chromathar. At the canyon entrance, they had set up equipment. A metal frame, plasma burners, cooking tools. They had planned this. They knew she would run here. They had herded her like an animal to slaughter. Vask reached the equipment and activated one of the plasma burners. Blue flame erupted with a soft roar. The heat from it reached Jiwoo even from 20 meters away. Any last words, little scientist? Vask asked. Some of your people pray to your gods before the end. Do you want time for that? Jiwoo could not speak, could not move, could not think. She pressed her back against the rough stone wall and waited for death, her large eyes filled with tears that evaporated almost instantly in the hot desert air. Vask raised his hand, signaling the others to grab her. That was when the sound of a gunshot split the air like thunder. Part 2, the human one of the Chromathar screamed. It was a horrible sound, full of pain and shock. The raider grabbed his shoulder and fell to his knees. Dark blood poured between his fingers. There was a hole in his armor plating, something that should have been impossible without military-grade weapons. The other Chromathar spun around, searching for the source of the attack. Vask's eyes went wide, and he raised his arm to point at the canyon ridge above them. A figure stood there, outlined against the darkening sky. It was bipedal, maybe 6 feet tall, much smaller than the Chromathar. The figure held something in its hands. A long object that looked primitive compared to plasma rifles. Smoke drifted from one end of it. Let her go, the figure called down. The voice was male, calm, speaking clear galactic common. Let her go and leave this planet. Do it now. Vask stared up at the newcomer for a long moment. Then he started laughing. The other Chromathar joined in, their laughter echoing through the canyon. Even the wounded one managed a pained chuckle. A human, Vask said, his voice filled with amusement. A single human thinks to challenge Chromathar hunters. The figure on the ridge did not move, did not respond, just stood there waiting. Jiwoo's mind was racing. A human? She had heard of them, of course. Everyone had. They were the newest species to join the Galactic Coalition. Barely 30 years since first contact. They came from a planet called Earth, somewhere in a distant spiral arm. The database listed them as adaptable generalists with moderate threat levels. Nothing special. Certainly nothing that could stand against Chromathar warriors. Do you know what you are doing, human? Vask called up. We are 7. You are 1. We are Chromathar, evolved hunters, apex predators. You are just a soft thing from a soft world. Your databases must have told you this. Last chance, the human said. His voice had not changed at all. Still calm, still steady. Walk away. Vask made a gesture to his hunters. Take him alive. I want to question this fool before we add him to the cooking fire with the Valrine. It will be interesting to learn why humans involve themselves in matters that do not concern them. 3 Chromathar began climbing the canyon wall toward the human. They moved with surprising speed for creatures their size, their claws finding holds in the rock easily. The human watched them come, still not moving, still holding that primitive weapon. When the first Chromathar got within 10 meters, the human moved. What happened next seemed impossible to Jiwoo. The human did not run, did not try to climb higher to safety. Instead, he jumped down from the ridge, a drop of at least 4 meters, and landed in a crouch on the canyon floor. The impact should have broken his legs. Jiwoo had seen Valrine die from falls half that height, but the human just stood up and started walking toward the Chromathar. Vask stared in confusion for a moment, then raised his plasma rifle. Foolish, he growled and fired. The plasma bolt should have hit the human in the chest. Should have burned a hole through him. Instead, the human was suddenly not where he had been. He had moved to the side faster than Jiwoo's eyes could follow. The plasma bolt struck rock behind him, turning sand into glass. The human raised his weapon and fired again. Another Chromathar went down, clutching his leg and howling. 2 down, 5 still standing, spread out. Vask roared. Surround him! The Chromathar moved to obey, but the human was already moving too. He ran along the canyon wall, using the terrain in ways that seemed calculated, almost like he had studied the ground before the fight started. When one Chromathar tried to cut him off, the human slid under the alien's grab, came up behind him, and struck the back of the Chromathar's knee with the stock of his weapon. The massive raider's leg buckled. He crashed to the ground with a sound like a falling tree. The human did not pause, did not slow down. He kept moving, kept shooting, kept fighting. Jiwoo watched in amazement. The human was smaller than the Chromathar. He had only a primitive weapon against their plasma rifles. By every logical measure, he should have been dead in seconds. But he was winning. Another Chromathar charged straight at the human, roaring and swinging his rifle like a club. The human ducked under the swing, stepped to the side, and the Chromathar's momentum carried him forward into the canyon wall. The alien hit face first with a sickening crunch. He slid down the rock and did not get up. Now 4 left. No, 3. One of the wounded Chromathar was trying to crawl away, leaving a trail of dark blood in the sand. Vask's expression had changed. The amusement was gone. Now there was something else in his yellow eyes. Something that looked almost like fear. "What are you?" Vask demanded. He fired his plasma rifle again and again, but the human kept moving, kept dodging. It was like he knew where the shots would be before they were fired. The human stopped moving. He stood in the center of the canyon, surrounded by fallen Chromathar, and looked directly at Vask. His face was calm. He was not even breathing hard. "I'm someone who doesn't let people get hurt when I can help," the human said. "That's all you need to know." 2 more Chromathar rushed him together, trying to use their numbers. The human dropped his weapon and met them with his bare hands. He grabbed one Chromathar's arm, twisted it in a way that made the alien scream, and used the raider's own body to block the other one's attack. Then he struck both of them with his fists, precise hits to specific points on their bodies. Both Chromathar dropped. Jiwoo had never seen anything like it. The human was not stronger than the Chromathar. He was not bigger. He was not using better technology. But he was winning through pure skill, through strategy, through a kind of fighting intelligence that Jiwoo had never witnessed before. Vask looked around at his fallen hunters. He looked at the human. Then he made a decision. He turned and ran. "Remember this," the human called after him. "Tell your friends. Tell anyone who'll listen. You don't hurt people here. Not while I'm around." Vask did not look back. He scrambled up the canyon wall with desperate speed and disappeared over the ridge. One other Chromathar who could still walk followed him, half carrying, half dragging a wounded companion. The others remained on the ground, groaning in pain but alive. The human watched them go. Then he turned to Jiwoo. She was still pressed against the canyon wall, her whole body shaking. The human walked toward her slowly, his hands raised and empty, showing he meant no harm. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. His voice was completely different now, soft and concerned. "Did they injure you?" Jiwoo tried to speak, but only a small sound came out. She shook her head. "It's okay," the human said. "You're safe now. My name is Taesung. I'm a freight hauler. I was bringing supplies to your dig site when I saw what was happening." He glanced at the fallen Chromathar. "I'm sorry I didn't get here sooner. Sorry?" This creature had just defeated 7 trained hunters alone, and he was apologizing for not arriving faster. Jiwoo's mind struggled to process what she had witnessed. "Can you walk?" Taesung asked. "My transport is about 1 kilometer from here. I can carry you if you need. I can walk," Jiwoo managed to say. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, high and thin. "Good." Taesung picked up his weapon, checked it quickly, and then offered his other hand to Jiwoo. "Let's get you back to the settlement. You should have a medical check, even if you're not injured. Shock can do funny things to people." Jiwoo took his hand. It was warm and solid. The human helped her step over the debris and the groaning Chromathar. She looked back once at the scene of the battle. It looked like a war had happened here, but it had only been 1 human against 7 Chromathar, and the fight had lasted less than 8 minutes. "What are you?" she whispered, echoing Vask's earlier question. Taesung glanced at her and smiled. It was a kind smile, gentle and reassuring. "Just someone who was in the right place at the right time," he said. "Come on, let's get you home."